We are back with more NBA coverage, and to start things out, the Bulls would sign Josh Giddey to a 4-year, $100 million contract extension, making him the second restricted free agent in this cycle to ink a deal with a team. And it just makes perfect sense from their perspective. The man last season went ballistic, especially if you look at his second half of the year, and it all culminated in him having a year where he averaged 14.6 points per game with 8.1 rebounds per game on 46.5% shooting, and most importantly, 37.8% shooting from deep. Now, yes, the Bulls have a lot of questions to answer when it comes to how exactly they are looking in the long term, whether or not they're trying to remain a mediocre team or whether they're actually trying to contend for playoff spots. But the fact that Giddey took that rise in such a short amount of time clearly shows a level of promise that could still develop in his game as he progresses as a player. It's not even like he is an older guy. This man is still only 22 years old. And if he can take those strides, continue to take those strides as a shooter, combined with everything else that he brings to the table, that'll help massively. But in terms of being a scoring player, with the way the team is constructed, they don't necessarily need him to do that right now. I mean, he also averaged 7.2 assists per game and was pretty much a table setter to help other guys on the squad get going, whether it was him pairing up alongside Kobe White or whether it was him getting looks to Matsas Buzelis last year. And we all know he definitely, in his second year, is going to have to take some massive strides as a player as well. Having somebody who can rally around their team like that and potentially elevate the games and the strengths of every single player that is pairing up on the court alongside them is massive. Now, obviously, Josh Giddey was coming off a number of different stuff before the last season started. Obviously, the allegations of assault of a minor ran rampant throughout the entire league. That certainly did not help his cause in any sense of the imagination. And again, people still will hold that against him now, even though he wasn't found guilty of this stuff. You also have the fact that in OKC, his role just phased him out of the lineup, honestly. Like, yeah, at the time he was drafted, he was considered to be a really solid prospect. Obviously, shooting being his greatest weakness by far. But his inability to do that very thing got him benched during an entire playoff series. And it just made it much harder for him to truly succeed with this lineup. I could argue that that would have been the case anyways, given how Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would rise as a player over the next few seasons that followed him getting drafted. And when you pair his ascent with Giddey's apparent decline in terms of importance to the team because of how many other assets they had in the vault, they just decided to move on from him in the hopes that they don't really have to deal with this problem anymore and that he now becomes the Bulls' issue. And I mean, can you necessarily say that they are wrong? Because another weakness of Giddey's game is defense. And you traded Giddey essentially straight up for Alex Caruso to then get signed to your team and then win a title in year one with him there. So it clearly worked out for them. And while the Bulls might be a little further away from contention, as Giddey continues to develop as a player, again, if he can continue to take these strides, like, that is going to be something pretty special. And again, to give him a $25 million deal with the idea that he can continue to massively outperform that value is going to be crazy. Because if he does become one of the more elite point guards in the NBA over this stretch, well, you're talking about a guy who's giving you all-star caliber production without even necessarily having to pay him what the standard rookie after their first contract would be getting paid. $25 million. And again, obviously, you have to take into account that Giddey's now playing for a different team. But for his second contract to be worth just $25 million a year, compared to how these other rookie contract extensions and rookie max contract extensions have been looking, that is quite the bargain, to say the least. But it is all going to be on his shoulders. Because again, you're going to be the main driving force on offense, and it does help this team when you fill it out with some of these other players like White, like Buzelis, like Herter now, like Carter now. They are going to need a person who can put them in the right spots on the court at the right times to get them their looks. Like, I guess Buzelis could develop that over time, but really, the only player who can create his own shot on this squad right now would be Kobe White, by far. Vucevic could also do it off of his size alone, but again, he's getting up there in age. So you would be a fool to consistently rely on that. It's got to be Josh Giddey. And again, if it does happen to not pan out for them, if he does stagnate as a player, well, again, you're still getting a solid starter, and you're not paying him like a top-end talent right now. So from that perspective, this still does not hurt you in the slightest. I like the deal, but again, as I alluded to, the team has got to figure out what exactly they're trying to do moving forward. I mean, at this point, by far, Vucevic is their oldest player. Now, they've got a ton of different rookies and younger players within the age range of like 20 to 27 years old. And so, yeah, you are looking at Josh Giddey to be a sort of leader in this sense. But the entire team has got to make some form of progression as well. Because it would also become a problem if Josh Giddey is taking all of these massive strides in his game to better himself as a player, and it still doesn't result in much of anything because of how poor the roster around him at large is doing. Would not be optimal for them at all. So they need to get that figured out, or it will be tough sledding. Now, again, it is great for them to have him re-signed. Yet still, when you look at their division, specifically the Central Division in the Eastern Conference, you now have to ask yourself, is that still going to be enough? Yes, a lot of the different powers in the Eastern Conference have shifted with a number of different injuries. But as far as their conference is looking right now, you still got a fucking gauntlet to run through. The Bucks are still as formidable as ever. The way that I would envision a player like Andrew Nemhard's role changing over the course of this season because of the Halliburton injury, the Pacers are still going to be dangerous, even if they may not go on as long of a playoff run as they did last season. They're still going to be a dangerous team. Like, where does that leave you if you are the Bulls right now? That could still leave you near the bottom of the division, barely contending for a playoff spot. So again, I don't know if you go into the season thinking that you're going to be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. But at the very least, a successful season would be them not only having Josh Giddey just leaning into becoming more of an all-star caliber player, but also being able to field a team that on, I guess, a nightly basis, in a logical sense, can go toe-to-toe with the powers of the NBA. I'm not going to sit here and act like they would win every single one of those games, but they should not be getting the floor mopped with them night in and night out. At least in theory. But again, if that were to happen, what are you going to do? Are you going, the front office, I would look at them. Are you going to be willing to make the moves you need to make a decision, to lean into a potential rebuild, or lean into maximizing the short term of this roster in trying to get them to overachieve? That is just going to lean heavily on them as the season progresses, no matter what happens. I mean, the fact that they had this hot stretch with not only Josh Giddey, but also Kobe White to close off last season, and it still wasn't enough for them to get into the playoffs. They made the play-in. But is that really all they want to consistently be settling for? I just don't know. But back to Josh Giddey, man. With all that I've said, you've got to respect it. Because honestly, we've seen players as young as he is get in situations off the court like that, and as a result, their entire careers have been derailed. Ironically enough, look no further than Josh Primo. That is a very great correlation. Obviously, there are others. But we're talking about a player in Josh Primo who was considered largely to be a similar talent, and maybe a little bit better, given how much further along he was in terms of his spacing of the floor. Yet all those allegations of misconduct and assault, harassment, made him a footnote almost instantly before he ever really was able to make a stride in the NBA. So the fact that he not only overcomes that, but also manages to at least shake off for now that initial rejection from the Thunder and go out and have a season that was inspired. Like, that says a lot about his overall ability as a player to realize that all of that is going down and still perform at a pretty damn good level. Now again, the Thunder have already gotten exactly what they wanted out of this. So it's not to say that they'll regret moving on from Josh Giddey, but you gonna tell him that? Because as long as he keeps performing like this, he could work himself into a much bigger deal down the line. I have tremendous faith in his ability to do that. And obviously, I don't think the Bulls are going to have a lot of nationally televised games just because, right? But it should be interesting to see what he does this season. I mean, for all the stuff that he does get in terms of his lack of ability to shoot, he has taken incremental steps forward from that spot of the floor in every single season he's been in the NBA. And obviously, he had a career high mark last year. So again, is that going to be consistent for at least the foreseeable future, or is that just going to stand out as an anomaly amongst all the other years that he'll log in the NBA? But nevertheless, Josh Giddey shows that, I mean, if you can affect the game, if you can affect an offense in that many ways, that versatility can pay off for you. And luckily enough for him, for at least the next 4 years, and with an average salary of $25 million a year, it will continue to do so. But can he, if they ask him to take a larger role, if they ask him down the stretch of games to take the final shot? And yes, obviously, he made fucking half-court game winner against the Lakers near the end of last season. That was still a heave. If it's drawn up to where they need him to take that kind of shot, is he gonna be able to answer the call? And at those points, we will truly be able to at least get a glimpse into what Josh Giddey is truly made of as an NBA talent. But again, just looking at it for now, this is a good deal. Speaking of heaves, a pretty good transition actually. Shams Charania would report a rule change for the upcoming season in the NBA, because as I've essentially summarized it right here, they are incentivizing players to chuck up half-court heaves at the end of periods in the game. First quarter, halftime, third quarter, fourth quarter, etc., etc. They're incentivizing it because, as it states right here, these heaves will not count against players, and they're going to count against the teams. So individual percentages and shooting splits for these players won't be affected by these shots, giving them free rein to do whatever they please, to add just a little extra intrigue to the game. And honestly, I would expect that a lot more people will give it a go. Obviously, you have the guys who are already well established in doing this kind of stuff. Stephen Curry, Peyton Pritchard, and Nikola Jokic are certainly going to continue to take these shots. And all of them have had a pretty good amount of success, especially Steph Curry and most recently Peyton Pritchard, in chucking up these deep shots from damn near half court, even beyond half court sometimes, to extend leads or snatch momentum away from the opposing team. And Jokic just doesn't give a fuck. He'll just throw it up. He doesn't care about, he was never worried about the percentages in the first place. And the NBA is making sure that he doesn't have to. But for the other players out there, I guess this is just a message being sent to them saying, hey, Don't be fucking scared. Don't be scared. Don't try to have such worry about protecting your own numbers on the basketball court. It's obviously, again, a bit of a detriment to your team's percentages if you go out and miss. But at the end of the day, the potential reward in you being able to sink that shot and hype up the crowd and have the team rally around you, and again, add even more points to your overall output, that reward is well worth it. So it's a pretty damn good situation to put yourself in if you do elect to shoot the ball from that deep at the end of a quarter. Truthfully, there's no way that you specifically, as the individual in this situation, will lose. Of course, it would suck if it's an end of game situation somehow. And oh yeah, I think something like that would be coming, by the way. But yeah, let's just think about this for a second. End of game situation with a team being down by either 3 points, like the Josh Giddey situation where he sunk that in a way. They're either facing a deficit right here, and they have a chance to tie or win the game in regulation right then and right there. It would suck if you do miss it. But obviously, the way that the damn broadcasters got lit up after Giddey sunk that in is the same way that would happen with another player if they were to do that. So again, like it's a pretty good rule to implement. And again, it does just incentivize that kind of random quality, I guess. Like, you shouldn't try to restrict yourself in that situation or feel that you have to restrict yourself in that situation. Go for it. Go for it. The Knicks would make a pair of interesting moves. Firstly, they would re-sign Landry Shamet to a 1-year deal. I honestly couldn't tell you why he sticks around. I don't know, really. I mean, yes, obvious answer. He's a fucking 38.5% three-point shooter. And really, in this day and age, if you have a person who can shoot that well from the floor, you're probably going to have a job, even if you are more of a rotational piece. The thing is, Shamet has never been consistent with that. Even in these averages, in the games where they need him the most, he just puts on a disappearing act every single time. And I guarantee you, I wouldn't be saying this about him if I saw even a glimpse of more consistency from him. Like, even with that percentage, I'm not seeing people truly have fear in Landry Shamet taking a three-point shot. They'll let him, and he will miss. They will live with it if he makes it. It's like, if you're really trying to be a dangerous sharpshooter, that's not how you want a team to be treating you. Again, even if he is not a starting caliber player, he should be commanding a lot more respect than that from the defense. And yet, it just hasn't really happened for him yet. But I guess if the Knicks can keep that around, you may as well get it for a bargain. And so, again, seeing as it's a 1-year deal, it's not that much of an issue. Also, again, Shamet is essentially in his prime right now. So, I mean, I don't really know if he would be sticking around for seasons to follow, but you're going to get the best version of him at this point. So you may as well take advantage of that in a calculated way. As for a recent move, they would sign Malcolm Brogdon also to a 1-year deal. And I love it, actually. I love it. Now, again, 3-point shooting for him, especially when you look at last season and the fact that he shot just 28.6% from 3 is not really a good quality, even though he is also a career 38.8% 3-point shooter. And he was in Washington last season. So that's going to bring out the worst in every player who graces that franchise with their presence. But legitimately, Brogdon has always been a solid point guard piece. He always has. I mean, it didn't end up panning out with Milwaukee for the longest time, but I mean, hey, the fact that he was able to hold it down at that position as Giannis was taking that rise to stardom already gives him a little bit of credibility here. He takes his talents to the Pacers and puts together a few solid seasons there, especially in the aftermath of the Victor Oladipo case. And the fact that all the injuries that he suffered just completely altered his game. And the Pacers needed that at that time. But they decided to move him over to the Celtics. And interestingly enough, they put him on the bench. But he was a 6th Man of the Year award winner with the squad. So if a team is asking him to consistently change his role around, like, he can do that. He can make that happen. So you're asking him essentially, even though he's a little bit older, there ain't nothing wrong with having that veteran presence in that locker room. And to have someone off the bench that can legitimately distribute the ball around on that second unit is going to pay dividends for a roster that had to watch in the playoffs as their bench was damn near unplayable up until things got extremely desperate, and then they had DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet go off for a slight glory run. If you had a legitimate point guard to rely on, who's to say that that would have been the situation with Thibodeau's bench, even though he is stubborn? Like, I'd much rather have Malcolm Brogdon leading this second unit, especially in situations where, again, because Jalen Brunson was getting hunted and worn down in the way that he was in that series against the Pacers, if he needs to take rest, you're going to get some pretty good continuity and some pretty solid minutes out of Malcolm Brogdon, even at the age of 33 years old. And he's going to be a lot more effective in those minutes than Cameron Payne was. I'd much rather see Malcolm Brogdon man the second unit compared to Cam Payne chuck up ugly-ass lefty jumper after ugly-ass lefty jumper. No. They can have no more of that. Like, yes, defense wins championships. But at the same time, you can also pair a pretty damn good amount of depth with that as well. Because if you can have players who can take a little bit of the burden off of your superstars, and you have enough faith in those guys to go out there and give you 15 to 20 solid minutes off of the bench on a night-to-night basis, especially with the frequency of which these playoff games are played and the fact that that has gotten complaints over the years. If you can conserve those bodies for that long and have your fresh superstar talent be able to go in and close out ball games, it is highly valuable to a team trying to make or win a championship. Simply put. Like, yes, obviously, we've seen a good balance of both. You know, superstars will obviously herald a lot of the glory in terms of championship wins. And there have been cases in recent years, in past years, all across NBA history, honestly, where superstar-driven teams with low amounts of depth have won. But the way that the NBA is set up now, with the second apron being in place, they are incentivizing the teams that can build even more around maybe one or two superstar players. And maybe there is even room for a tertiary third, like the Thunder are doing right now. Whether or not you're ready to give every single one of those players that label. I mean, we know Shea is the unquestioned superstar. And the co-stars are exceptional in Williams and Holmgren. But you also have Hardenstein. You also have Isaiah Joe spacing off the bench. You also have Aaron Wiggins providing you with good defense off the bench. You have Ousmane Dieng to expound. You have Alex Caruso, who can start for you on some nights or come off the bench and still give you elite two-way play at his position and his size. That is how the NBA is evolving when it comes to roster construction. And obviously, some teams are going to excel at that better than others, which is why you bring up the Thunder here, right? But if the Knicks can do whatever they can, honestly, with the limited amount of space they have after re-signing a lot of their core guys, you can get value like this in Malcolm Brogdon for that cheap. You're doing exactly what it is you need to be doing. And Brogdon is still a pretty good player. So to have that come off the bench and give Jalen Brunson the time he may need on some nights to rest, that will be highly important, especially come playoff time. Because again, as I stated with the Bulls and the Giddey deal, it's the same thing with the Knicks and all the moves that they've made this offseason. The way in which the Eastern Conference has shifted around with a lot of the different injuries and changes in roster construction make it to where the Knicks have a pretty solid chance, if things go according to plan for them, to represent the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals. And no, I don't even say that to make a hot take or anything. I mean, they were literally in the fucking Eastern Conference Finals last season, with nearly the same roster. So why wouldn't the next step for them be to extend their run for one more series with the highest stakes on the line? Why wouldn't that be the next direction to look towards if you are the New York Knicks here? Like, you just got to look at it from that perspective. So again, at least from their perspective, The got a pair of really good moves here. Shamet is a decent enough shooter to last, and Malcolm Brogdon, as a second unit guy and as a pure point guard off the bench, could immensely help the rotational viability of this Knicks roster, because, man, they are surely going to need it again come playoff time. In no way, shape, or form, again, I think that they embrace it. They embrace the ability to grind out an entire season. But literally, you got gassed by the end of that Pacers series because of the insane amount of minutes you logged over the course of the entire season. You got gassed in the 2024 playoffs by the end of that Pacers series because of how you accrued all of those minutes over the course of the regular season. And then within just minutes in those final couple of games in that series, players crumbling for you left and right. Brunson, Hart, Anunoby, all down, all out for the rest of the series because of that. You do not want to make the same mistake this time. So getting Brogdon here makes sense. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.